Hey there, everybody. Parks Owsley here with Inven Global and HyperX presenting Esports Weekly, and I am joined this week by Amanda, who's been doing some incredible things in the quarantine, no less, which I think is incredibly impressive. And I want to celebrate that a little bit and kind of give people some happy news amidst kind of a lot of chaos going on right now. So thank you, Amanda, so much for joining. My first question for you, before we touch on all the cool stuff that you're doing, I want to know, on top of all of that, have you picked up any hobbies or skills or anything else in this coronavirus period, since we're just spending so much time sitting at home doing nothing?
No. I was like, so it's real funny. You follow me on social media.
Mm-hmm.
So I was doing for quite a bit those videos being like, hey, make sure you're drinking water. And in those videos, it's like, learn a new skill, right? And then at home, I'm like, I'm not learning shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think it's because, like, if I didn't have all the projects that I ended up getting towards the end of May, most of this month, maybe I would have been like, oh man, I'll finally learn how to like use Sony Vegas or like some other really useful career skill. But I'm good.
Yeah, no.
I'm already multi-talented.
Yeah.
So like, oh no, I don't know how to video edit real good. I'll get over it.
I also, honestly, don't tell my boss, but I don't know how to video edit real good either, and I get paid to do that. So, but everybody else, cut the VOD. Don't record that part. But yeah, so thank you so much for joining us. So for those of you who don't know, Amanda is a much better esports journalist than I am. Has been doing it longer, covers more esports, is just like more knowledgeable. Doesn't know how to video edit, but you know, whatever. Still succeeding, still thriving. You've done a lot of really cool stuff recently in the last month, which is not something that a lot of people can say, especially in esports, I think. There's been a lot of like...
Wait, is there esports right now?
There are.
What?
What are you talking? You're doing esports right now.
I mean, like, I hear there's this, like, LCS thing, but I hear, like, every team is pretty trash except for, like, one.
Which we'll talk about eventually, but...
They hired a really good diversity consultant recently. That's all I know about them, so I'm just going to say diversity consultant buff.
There we go. Hey, yeah, it's coming in handy. It's still paying off. They're looking just as good as they did last spring. So we'll talk about that. First, I wanted to talk about you said, are there esports happening? You are making esports happen because you just ran an event recently called Transitional Combat.
Oh, yeah. Wow, I forgot all about that.
I am so curious. As someone who has like struggled to get people to talk to me, to respond to an email, to, you know, hey, you know, we'll do an interview. Yeah, we'll do it. Yeah, we'll do it. Okay, yeah, sure. You ran an entire event from nothing to completely running to thriving with sponsors and everyone involved in like a week. And so I want to get like, I want to know all about this. So first off, what was your original dream? And, you know, knowing all of the like chaos of esports and just the time in the US right now in general, like, how did you even begin to think like, yes, I can do this, I can make this happen? And how did you start that out?
So I'll be completely honest. So what we're talking about is my event, Transitional Combat, which was a 2-day Street Fighter V tournament, one for the West Coast and one for the East Coast. Because unlike League of Legends or Valorant or whatever, connectivity between coasts, not so great. And that's because Japanese companies don't think about netcode, because the infrastructure in Japan is way better than it is in the United States. And so that's actually a big problem with a lot of Japanese-made games, is that when you try to do online play in the States, it's not always great. That's not what this was about. So with everything that's been going on, both with COVID, with the Black Lives Matter movement, and knowing that Pride was coming up, and that, you know, while I'm very happy that we're talking about Black lives, I don't want to forget the struggles of people like me, queer folks. And, you know, June is usually the month that we start that dialogue and it gets a lot of traction. I wanted to make sure that like I was doing something that would help something that's important to me, which is trans lives, right? So I made a tweet on like May 26th, like, hey, you know, I kind of want to run a fighting game tournament for Trans Lifeline. Would anybody want to help? And, you know, you're a content creator. You used to not work for an amazing outlet like Inven Global. You know what happens when you make a tweet like, hey, I want to do a project. Sometimes you get like 5 likes and like 10 retweets, and that's it. Yeah. Right? And then you're just like, well, nobody's interested in this project. I don't got the time to do it by myself. That wasn't what happened. It got a lot of retweets. There was a lot of people saying, yo, I'm down to commentate for free. Whatever you need help with, I'm here to help. You need graphics, you need a streamer, whatever you need, I'm here to help. And I was like, well, crap. I just wanted to just run a one-day tournament. Right? Like, I was like, oh, I'll just run like a bracket and we'll raise like maybe a couple $100 and call it a day. And with the amount of support and some of the names that we're offering to help, like TS Sabin, who is streams for NYC Furby, that's one of the bigger streamers for the FGC. You know, WSO Logan, you know, a well-known British commentator. There were so many big names offering to help that I was like, well, I guess I can't just do a rinky-dink event. Let's go hard. One problem. I know nothing about running a fighting game tournament, right? Like, I've run some Magic the Gathering charity tournaments in the past. You know, I helped run an open, back in the day when there was this thing called the Challenger Series, I helped run an open qualifier for NA Challenger stream where we, you know, broadcasted a bunch of games on a bunch of different Twitch channels, and that was real cool. But I've never done this. So the first thing I did was I reached out to Sabin, Arturo, and I was like, hey, you're offering to stream? Cool, because my stream is not going to get a lot of traction. Someone who would reply to the thread is a tournament organizer, and I know a lot of commentators that have worked with him, and I was like, all right, cool, I got a tournament organizer. Matcherino was the donation platform that we decided to go with because they offered to do a lot of stuff and waive a lot of fees for the event. So I was like, all right, I got you 3. What does a fighting game event look like? Help. And that came together real quickly. I would say in 36 hours, we like knew the name of the event. We had a date figured out. We had, you know, the particulars. We had made the sign-up pages. Everything was figured out. From there, it was just a matter of doing graphics, getting people interested in the event. And so while outwardly it looked like that event was like put together over the span of 2 weeks, it was pretty much put together by like May 30th.
Yeah, just a couple days.
Minus sponsors and stuff, right? Like Cloud9, because I'm partnered with them this month for Pride Month, from the jump was like, whatever you need, like if you want us to like donate some stuff, we'll donate some stuff. So like we had at least one partner from the jump, but except for securing sponsors and like giveaway swag, event was put together in like 3 days. Because when I work, I try to work real quick, because the best way to get people to support your thing is if they see like a finished product, right? You know, whether it's sponsors, whether it's people wanting to tune in, the more polished something looks, the more energized people get about it, right? You know, it's true, right? That's like why I have like, you know, this nice backdrop look up. You know, like I got some Red Bull swag. There's some like, like stuff, right? You know, gotta make people entertained. So yeah, as far as my original goal, I honestly thought from day one that we'd raise like $1,000. That was it. I was like, we're gonna raise $1,000 for Trans Lifeline. That's real sick. It'll be dope. And you know what? If we raise more, cool. If a bunch of people tune in, cool. If a bunch of people sign up or don't sign up, that's cool. Like as long as we raise like $500,000, sick. And some people involved were like, "Yo, 1,000's too small. We're probably gonna do more." And I was like, I don't know. I'm gonna safely think 1,000 is like the peak. Look, I was wrong. I'm not wrong often, but like this was a time, I thought that Cloud9 would get out of groups over Alliance. I mean, a kaboom had to happen, but, like, I was still right. LS still paid me $50 on that bet. So, like, I'm not wrong very often, but, like, this time I was wrong, It happens, unfortunately.
This is a great time to be wrong. If there's anything to be wrong about, it was how much money you raised. So ultimately, you did 10 times more than what you thought the peak was.
Yeah.
I want to know what that felt like, as, like, obviously you got everything together, like a couple days, and then, like, you set the date, it's a couple weeks out. It's cool that you're just kind of chilling at that point. But then once the magic starts happening, the games are going on, there are people coming in the stream is blowing up, more and more money. I saw you, like, change okay, our goal is 3,000. Okay, our goal is 5,000. Like, and it just kept going up and up and up. What did that feel like?
So things got a little crazy very quick. So thanks to, like, a lot of the conversation and discourse about Black Lives Matter, and people saying, like, don't forget about Black trans lives, a anonymous donor reached out to me, I think a day or two after we had dropped the trailer for the event, and was like, hey, I reached out to somebody because I wanted to donate, support something they were doing, and they said, hey, I've already got a lot of support. Here's some other things I'm hearing about. And he was like, look, I know your event's a couple weeks out, but I want to match whatever your donations are up to $1,000. And I was like, I'd never heard of this dude. Doesn't have a lot of Twitter followers. Nobody I know follows him. Like, literally just, like, out of nowhere. So, even though I was, like, cautious about the situation, I was like, well, shit. Like, if we raise just $900, like, if we raise $500, right, we hit my goal. Like, that alone is sick, right? And then if we hit $900 or something, like, that's a day of the hotline, because if it's getting matched, it's $1,800. So from very early on, I was like, all right, maybe this event can, like, be a lot more than I think it is. And as we kept hitting, like, once we hit the 1,000 before that weekend, which meant that we could announce that we would raise 2,000. He made the public donation. So we bumped it up to 3,600, which is 2 full days of the hotline working. And we smashed, I think we smashed that before the event started too. The Friday, June 12th, I believe, of the event was insane. I think we got above $6,000. So, another $2,500. That was insane. And, like, in our Discord, we're all just like, holy shit, did you see we just got a $100 donation? Yo, we just got a bunch of $50 donations. Oh my God, did you see somebody donated $500? And we're just like, the hell is going on here? Like, what is happening? And I didn't get as choked up when I got on the mic at the end of the first day tournament, because it's like, it's still early. But I did kind of break down on the mic on Saturday, because Trans Lifeline is the reason why I can afford to change my name. I, 2 years ago, had a very difficult day, and talking to somebody on that peer support hotline saved my life. It's why I have, like, my semicolon tattoo, because, like, I'm still here. And so knowing that I put something together that gives them, I think, like, 5 days of operating budget for the hotline, or, helps, something like 10 people get their name changed and their documents updated, like, that feeling is way better than the actual money raised, right? Mm-hmm. If we lived in a world where, like, money was just, like, an abstract concept, and, we were just like, here's a coin, it doesn't mean anything, but this coin gets you a drink, I would still feel the same way, knowing that, like, 10 coins help 10 people, right? It's not the amount of money that we raise, it's the impact that money will have, that like, means the world, not only to myself, but to everybody who's involved, right? A lot of people joined this event either as competitors or as staff because they believed in doing something good. And so for a lot of us, it was very humbling and amazing to know that we did something that's gonna help a lot of people, right? Things aren't great right now, right? Like, make no bones about it. Like, we can joke and laugh right now, and there's a lot of things to be happy about. But for a lot of people, things aren't great. And, it was interesting that, the Trump administration is trying to roll back LGBT protections and healthcare. And, I think that also helped a lot of people want to donate because they want to help. Like St. Cola, one of our commentators, said it best. It shows that even if the government's not looking out for us, like we'll look out for each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he said when we hit the 10K. And it's true. Like it shows that no matter how bad things are, no matter how much you think people are shit, no matter how much faith you may have lost in humanity, there's always a moment that can come across that reminds you that like not everybody is awful. Maybe a large swath of people, but not everyone.
Yeah. Well, I like that message. I love that I kind of quantified it here as well, like what the 10,000 actually means.
Yeah.
And thanks for sharing your story as well. What lessons did you learn going through all of the process of building? You obviously you learned a lot from the people who are helping you. And do you feel like this is something that you'll try and do again?
So I've talked about it a little bit on Twitter. I mean, I also made an announcement on Twitter that after this interview, I'm taking a bit of a vacation from working. But we are going to keep doing transitional combat as a monthly. For those of you unfamiliar with the term, it means that we're going to be doing monthly tournaments. The next one is going to be a Skullgirls tournament. I'm not 100% sure if every tournament's going to benefit Trans Lifeline. There are a lot of other really great and important trans causes. I don't expect every transitional combat to raise 10K. That would be crazy. But like, if we raise like $200, that's still $200 that like that organization, whoever we choose to be the beneficiary, wouldn't have had, right? So, we're going to be doing that. The other thing we're going to be doing is that we're going to be using the Discord server that we use to run the event to also be a place of empowerment. And what that means is that, in a lot of spaces right now in gaming, we're talking about how do we make the space better? How do we hold people accountable? How do we do better? How do we, make people feel safe? And so my philosophy has always been that you fill the space with good people, right? So, this was something Froskurin said to me when I was first starting out. And, I was like, why are you being so nice to me? And she was like, I was told that if you help the right people, you'll make the space better. So I want to do the same thing. So we're going to be having industry professionals come in and hold workshops and AMAs. We're going to be teaching people how to be bracket runners, commentators, working in different parts of broadcast. Basically, the idea is, if you've ever felt disenfranchised in the FGC, whether because you're Black, because you're queer, because you're trans, we want you to know that, like, you can come into the Transitional Combat server and be empowered to not only maybe be a better player, but, like, be a better part of the FGC. Because in the FGC, we're a community, right? That's what that C stands for. That's why we laugh when esports outlets write FGC community. Yeah. Because you're saying community. But, we want to make sure that people don't forget that that's what the C stands for, right? It stands for community, and we want to make our community better. And the way we do that is we bring more people in, and we make sure that they know that they belong here and not the haters. Mm-hmm. So that's the other aspect of the event that I learned, because there were a lot of people that came to me and said, hey, this was my first tournament. This is the first time I felt comfortable entering a tournament. Whether, I don't know if they were queer, I don't know if they were trans. Some people said, I'm queer and this is my first, open bracket I've ever entered. And that feels good to me that I created a space that people felt comfortable in. And, it's what I've been doing with my work all of my adult life, whether it was in the Magic the Gathering community, whether it was, trying to help journalists who are trying to get into esports, whether it's, with transitional combat. I always want to make sure that the space that I'm in is a space that other people want to be into and feel comfortable and safe in. Yeah. The other thing I learned is that any skill I've learned as a content creator is applicable to so many other things.
Yeah.
So, like, working on tight deadlines, whatever all the promotional content, right? We did a video on, like, how to use Matcherino, because I knew a lot of my non-FGC friends have never heard of the site, never used it. It's a really clunky interface. And when the Matcherino folks saw the video, they're like, this is the best thing ever. Like, we've never seen somebody cleanly explain how to use all aspects of the site. They're like, can we use this for future stuff? And it, like, to me, it was just a simple thing. How do you make sure people give you money? Let them know how to give you money, right? Like, as a content creator, right, explaining things to people is just an ordinary part of life, right? Like, that's just what we do when we're writing pieces about the meta, right? We want to do it in a way that people understand it best. We can't just be using jargon and saying the word rotation a lot or wave timings, right? The average person doesn't know any of that. You know, the average League player will be like, I'm freezing the wave, and they're not. So you got to explain stuff in as simple terms as possible. And that's something that I learned about a lot of the content that we did for Transitional Combat, is that one of the reasons people thought it was very clean and just like good was because I thought about it the way we make content, right? And so even though I didn't know the general things that go into running a tournament, and I still don't know like bracket seeding and all of that stuff, I know what a good event looks like because I've written about good events. And so surprisingly, writing about stuff enough makes you pretty good at like actually doing the thing to an extent.
It definitely, I mean, in this circumstance, it for sure did. Because this was like a success if I've ever seen one, as far as like any, you know, smaller scale tournament type or grassroots, I guess, thing. Although I don't know, how common is that in the FGC? Because I guess that is like, I mean, I'm not in that.
That's the thing we do kind of often. I mean, like, the thing is like, you know, sometimes in League, right, we talk about missing the MLG days, right? You know, the open circuit. You know, that hasn't really left the FGC. Sure, there's the Capcom Pro Tour, there's the Tekken World Tour, there's, you know, the Dragon Ball World Tour, you know, Smash Tour was supposed to happen, but COVID kind of stopped that. You know, we do have some of these bigger production things that, like, the rest of esports is used to seeing, but it's not like our locals went away. It's not like our mid-tier events went away. They're still here. They're still an active part of the ecosystem. Where do you think players like IDOM come from, right? Like, everyone, you know, we don't have that very often in League anymore, of just like a player coming from left field, right? Like a complete unknown, right? But like IDOM is an online warrior that people have known about in the Northeast for years. And this was last year was his blowout year, and he won the Capcom Cup. That's because like grassroots FGC didn't go anywhere, right? You know, as hard as it is to break into esports, the reason why the FGC is so diverse and why so many people want to be are a part of it is because you don't necessarily need a big sponsor, right, to do it. IDOM didn't have a sponsor last year, qualified for the Capcom Cup, won the whole thing. You know, there's that still fantasy that a lot of people can have, and there's some mitigating factors. You know, it is expensive to travel to a bunch of events, but IDOM didn't leave the country and qualify for the Capcom Cup, right? Like, the idea of just saying you want to do something and doing it, I think, still exists in the FGC in a way that hasn't really existed for a lot of esports in a long time. You know, the same weekend, there was a Tekken tournament called Resist the Iron Fist that raised bail fund money, and I think they raised, want to say, like, almost double what we raised for a bail fund. So, like, it's not uncommon. You know, I think we're seeing a resurgence of charity-based endeavors in the FGC because, you know, there's no public tournaments right now. Everybody's feeling a way about different things going on in the country, so they just want to do something that means something. But, like, you know, you don't see that in League, right? You're not seeing a bunch of League streamers running, like, in-house tournaments for charity. You're not seeing it in Overwatch. You're not seeing it in CSGO. And that's not to say anything about, like, the streamathon that, like, Riot did, or, like, the fact that I think Froggen did a stream and then, like, donation matched his donations. I know Impact donated a very large amount to the Minnesota Bail Fund. So I'm not trying to say, like, oh, man, other esports, they're not doing charitable giving. But it's not the same as we're seeing in the FGC right now, right? We're not, like, literally, the people I worked with are doing a different tournament this weekend to raise money for bail funds, right? It's become a continuous thing that the FGC is about. And I think it speaks to, like I said, that C word, right? Community, right? We intrinsically care about each other, even if we're awful to each other at times. but I don't feel intrinsically connected to another League player the same way I do someone else in the fighting game community.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I have learned a lot more about it in the last couple of years. And I think you maybe put it more eloquently than others have. But it seems, at least right now, like kind of necessary. And I do kind of, I never missed the MLG days of League because I wasn't here. I didn't even know video games were a thing. Like, I was like small town Texas, like we didn't even have computers. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. So I missed all of that. And then, you know, after getting into the LCS, realized that the fighting game community was a thing. And I was like, what? This is so different. How does it run? How is it even possible? But I'm glad it does, because I don't know, that's really cool. And it's cool that that's able to happen. And I think it is a somewhat necessary call out of a criticism for kind of the tier one, the major esports that aren't doing as much.
You can use the word call out. I'm just a lowly consulting unicorn. I just point out facts, and people can draw the conclusions from the information that I put out there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well then let's talk about that. That's a great segue. So the other kind of big topic and the other big thing I want to celebrate is your recent work with Cloud9. Surprise, everyone, if you haven't realized. Also, our graphics kind of cutting out. You have to like lift it up. There we go. All right, so we've got the Cloud9
jersey. It's not like you can't notice the symbol.
Yeah, you know. Well, maybe you don't want to alienate anyone who's maybe less well versed with the LCS. In any case, you've been working with Cloud9 and some others doing diversity or doing work for diversity and inclusion in esports and esports brands, which is desperately needed right now.
No, really? I mean, man, those Black Lives Matter announcements were something.
Yeah. There's been, for anyone listening who wants to learn more about this, there's a great article on Hotspot written by Nick Ray that I would encourage you to go look up. But then also, I would encourage you to stay here and sit and listen, because I think I want to hear what Amanda has to say. Other than that, I haven't seen a whole lot going on as far as Black Lives Matter and esports. But so you recently were hired by a couple organizations. How did you even begin to pitch yourself to them and how did you get them to listen? Because this is, again, just going back, I talk to these guys all the time because that's my job. And it's oftentimes very hard to get someone to even agree to do a simple interview. How did you get them involved, or how did you get involved with them this much?
So a little known fact about me is that I have been doing safe space trainings and diversity work, not in the esports space, but just like with local businesses, at local colleges, high schools, things of that nature. And it's work that I did extensively when I used to be a Magic the Gathering judge. Last year, as you may remember, I was very loud on Twitter that I was extremely disappointed with some esports brands and the way that they were doing stuff for Pride. I, off the record, as friends, was speaking to some people from Cloud9 about how I felt about esports activations for Pride and how I wish that companies could do better, right? And, there was a general expression, not just from people at Cloud9, but from other orgs, from, as someone who works in the space, right? You inevitably make friends in the space separate from the fact that, you cover the space, right? I think the same is true for you. You're not just some guy that shows up at LCS and does interviews and then never talks to another esports person until you show up again next weekend, right? And, a lot of people were about trying to do better. So mid-May, I started reaching out to orgs and saying, hi, I'm a diversity consultant. This is work I've done. Would you be interested in hiring me for a consultation to talk about what you want to do for Pride? And some orgs were like, hey, we're interested, but we can't pay you. And some orgs were like, hey, we're not interested at all. And to Cloud9's credit, they were very much just like, yes, we think this is important. Yes, we think you deserve to be paid. let's figure this out. And I just kind of went from there. You know, the thing that I think, and I understand this from a content creator perspective too, is sometimes you just have to keep trying. You know, and I think a lot of people know through a lot of the stuff I've been doing visibly in the last year, you know, working with EXO Academy, which is a way to get more women involved in the fighting game community, you know, stuff being an Eddie Key affiliate, right? All of these things have added to my visibility as somebody who cares about diversity and inclusion in esports, and cares about it enough that people whose whole brand and job in esports is doing that have aligned themselves with me. And I think that gave me a lot of confidence, but also negotiating power when reaching out to some of these brands like Cloud9. And then, you know, once I landed Cloud9 as a client, it made it easier to work and talk with other brands as well. So, you know, it was a pretty nice snowball.
Yeah. When you first started working with them, like when you first sat down, when they're like, yes, we want you, yes, we'll pay you, yes, you know, we'll figure all this out. When you first actually started working with them, what were the kind of like immediate things that you realized, like, oh, this needs work, oh, this needs work?
So to be completely transparent, like there's some stuff I obviously can't talk about, right, because contracts. Sure. But like the way that I prefer to work with my clients is I ask them what they think they want to do. What are their goals, right? And then the idea from there is to figure out how do you do that in a meaningful and holistic way that amplifies and empowers that space, as opposed to just coming in and being like, hey, we did this thing, here's a check, all right, see you next year, right? So one of the things that I spoke to them about was that, you know, diversify the charities they work with. Yes, the Trevor Project does amazing work, but it's not like the Trevor Project isn't visible year-round, right? We don't stop hearing about the Trevor Project at the end of June. We know that we've seen streamers donate to them. We see campaigns, we see celebrities talk about the Trevor Project year-round. Because of how things are in the US and across the world, there is no physical IRL Pride events, right? There just isn't. And this is a big problem for a lot of these smaller charities and these local LGBT centers, because they rely on June events for a large swath of their donations. And so I implored Cloud9 to look at other charities like Trans Lifeline, like the LA LGBTQ Center, like the, I'm actually blanking on, there's a third charity that we're working with, because that will have more meaning and have more impact. And I know from talking with Cloud9 that, you know, the partnership that they've been building with the LA LGBTQ Center is going to be something that's going to be long-term. You know, a lot of the kids are interested in gaming. They are interested in learning more about computers. Some of them are, you know, interested in esports. And so they're looking at how they can now be partnered and empower that center through the year. And, you know, that's the type of work that I want to see more esports brands do. You know, it's cool to make your logo rainbow for a month and make a donation. Make a logo, right, make a rainbow version of your logo and sell it, right? And you know, I had but that doesn't mean sometimes that much, you know, especially, you know, when you're like Riot last year and it was 10% of the profits from their esports pride cert went to charity. Yeah. Great. $3 a shirt.
Yeah. What's that about?
That's I'm not gonna buy a $30 shirt to give $3 to charity. I'll just give $3 to charity outright then. And that's what I did. I gave $3 to Trevor Project last year. Because I was like, I'm not buying a shirt that's more expensive because I'm fat. To only give $2.85 to a charity. No, I could just give $3. That's not meaningful, right? Sure, you show that you're an ally, but like there's more to allyship than showing up, right? And I'm very impressed with the work that C9 has done and plans to do with the conversations we had. There are other brands that I've worked with that understand that I think I've gotten an understanding across. There are other brands that I'm hoping to work with, that are also aligned with this idea of what does it mean to be a continual ally? That doesn't mean that we have to make Pride merch a year-round thing. That doesn't mean that, we have to keep our logo, we have to, shift our logo to a rainbow version permanently. Sometimes it's partnering with a youth league, right? Sometimes maybe it's creating an LGBTQ scholarship to some program you're doing, right? There's all of these different ways that you can empower and enrich these communities that you say you stand for that don't necessarily is just a check or a social media post. And that's something that I think a lot of brands, not just in esports, but, some of these gaming companies also need to learn, right? Cool, Activision made a post and donated $1 million, but they pay their CEO a couple $100 million a year. So when you know that information, $1 million doesn't sound that generous, right? But what if Activision said all game sales from the month of June went to the Trevor Project, right?
That's huge.
What if the Epic Game Store said all microtransactions made this month is going to go to the LGBTQ Freedom Fund, right? And even though I just said, sometimes it's more than a checkbook, well, let's be real, some of these esports teams, they can't just write a blank multi-million-dollar check, right? But imagine the amount of good the Epic Game Store is saying 50% of all of our microtransactions this month went to the LGBTQ Freedom Fund.
Mm-hmm.
Just come up with the number you think that is.
Oh,
right? Financially. Right?
Hundreds of millions. I don't know.
Right?
Yeah.
So just imagine what type of change that makes. What if you made that a scholarship fund? What if every June Epic did that? They put 50% of their profits into a scholarship fund that they gave out to LGBTQ gamers. How many lives does that change? Right? But that's not the type of thinking that these orgs do, because they aren't thinking about empowerment. Right? There's a difference between wanting to make a difference and empowering and enriching a community. Right? A blank check of $50,000, $100,000, $250,000, that's great. And that's going to be great for operations for, a year or two. But giving someone a chance to go to university or enrich themselves that they wouldn't have had otherwise is something that can then be the effect you have on one life can have an effect on so many lives. Look at myself, right? I just said that I'm still here because of Trans Lifeline, and because of me and the people that I influence, we raised $10,000. What if that one person you send to college raises $10,000 and you sent 50 people to college, right? That's a lot of money, right?
It's check.
The empowerment enrichment has things that has ripples that you can't even imagine, right? And so that's the type of work that I want these teams, these companies, these influencers to do and think about is if you have the money to donate $50,000, that's the same amount of money to send somebody to school for 2 years or a year. Why not do that? Why not make a scholarship fund? Why not pick 100 students and pay for their books? Right? There are all of these things that cause disparity in the world, and money is one of them. And so why not think about more, right? Same amount of money, just how do you impact people more meaningfully with it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that a lot. So is that the type of conversation I assume that you're having with Cloud9? Have you been able to have that with others as well? Is that part of your I'm going in to try and pitch the whole thing, or that's a much deeper thing, I'm guessing?
So it's more of a comfort thing, right?
Okay.
That's why I said I go in asking what their goals are, right? Because I have a lot of ideas, but what is actually meaningfully in your means, right? So it's better to work within somebody's means and show them what they can do in that spectrum that is the most meaningful and has the most impact for empowerment and enrichment than to just be like, no, you got to do this, and if you don't do this, like, you suck. Right? Not every brand I work with can set up a scholarship fund. Mm-hmm. But like if I had an hour with Epic, that's what I would try to do. Right? That would be what I would try to get out of that multi-consulting time I would have with Epic, is like scholarship fund. Like, it's not hard for you guys to make a slush fund, right? You already do it in tax havens. Like, just all right, you can't do 50%? I guarantee you any percentage of your sales for a month is enough of a scholarship fund for at least one student. Unless the number is 0.
Yeah. And 0.01% of your sales for a month is going to send more than one student, probably.
Yeah, so like that's the thing, right? You just got to think about who you're talking to, what their means are, and then like what's the scale of impact we can achieve.
Gotcha. And what is your goal as far as esport, like doing this consulting for esports orgs? I imagine, you want to continue doing it. I guess I should ask that. Have you enjoyed it? Do you even want to keep doing that?
I've enjoyed it a lot more than anything else I've done in esports.
That's good to hear.
I think to jump on what I think your question is, and then you can tell me if I didn't answer it. My goal is that I just want the space to be better. I think that esports is in a way more special than some other industries because of the different types of people it can connect. And I think that we can do a lot as an industry to both not only make the internal aspect of the industry better, but to put a positive stamp on the rest of, I won't say the world, but like at least on other people's lives, right? We've been talking, I think, a lot about like how influencers are getting involved in esports. Like we talk about T-Pain and Snoop Dogg and Drake, right? Like all these people, how like they're secretly COD fans, or they play Fortnite and all this shit. But like, let's look at it on the other side, right? How many people that like are fans of Drake were already playing Fortnite, right? So like, what if Fortnite is just doing good stuff, right? They're creating a carpool system for their employees to get to the office to lower the carbon footprint, right? They're doing this, every Pride Month, we take 5% of our sales to create a charity, to create a scholarship fund. We set up a post imprisonment enrichment program where we're helping people who get out of the criminal justice system to have better jobs, right? What if these companies that everybody's like, look, us esporters, us gamers, right? The ones that those of us watching the show or reading the articles on Inven or interacting with me on social media, we're not the only people who like play Fortnite, right? Normal people play Fortnite. Regular kids play Fortnite, right? Like there are kids right now who are probably playing Fortnite on their tablet, right? Who are like 12. What if every time they log in, they're seeing some form of social change that Epic is doing? What type of influence do you think that has on all of those people playing this game? And maybe some people, they just click close, right? When I turn on, Pokemon Go and they give me an announcement, I'm like, all right, I see this announcement close, and I go back to playing Pokemon Go. But I at least see it, right? What type of impact does that have, right? Knowing that this game that millions of people are playing, every time they log in, they're getting some type of notification about social change, right? And that's the type of stuff that I want to be a part of. I want to use gaming and esports as a vehicle for betterment, right? There's so many things that esports is giving me, right? Friends across the world. I've been to cities I would have never been to. I've learned about cultures that I never would have learned about. I've met a diverse group of people, and there's things gaming has taught me, right? Some of my vocabulary comes from playing Magic and, learning what the word austere means, right? There's all of these things that I know for a fact gaming has done for other people, whether it's gone over anxiety, helped them be better communicators, better leaders. And, I know that, and I'm sure you've heard stories like that too, but just imagine if, that's part of just what we do forward-facing as an industry. What if, as one of the paramounts of how is esports better than sports is we're trying to cause social impact? And I think that's something that, as esports, we're lacking behind traditional sports, right? There are so many traditional sports teams that do youth leagues, that go to youth centers to help kids. There's all of this mentorship that happens in traditional sports. We don't do any of that shit. We do one charity stream a year, and we're like, oh man, we raised $250,000. That's so great. It's okay.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And I know, I don't want to belittle the stuff people do, but don't just pat your back for doing something that you could just be doing anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that was the thing too about if it's a microtransaction, whatever percent doesn't really matter. If it's written there on the store every single time someone buys something out of all these millions.
What if you pick the charity every time? Right? It's every month they rotate 3 charities, and you're like, hey, you bought the Kaisa KDA Prestige skin, and it said, hey, you bought this skin, would you like your donation, would you like a percentage of your purchase to go to the ACLU, LGBT Freedom Fund, or Unicorn Riot, right? Even if you just clicked on something, right? Just because you just want to get through the menu and play your games and go 0-14, you still did something positive. And maybe after the 8th skin you bought that you picked a charity for, you're like, the hell have I been doing? What is Unicorn Riot? And then they go and they look up, and maybe that person goes, shit, I don't know why I was supporting this. Or maybe they read it and they're like, yo, I'm about this. The next time I stream to my 4 friends, I'm going to talk about Unicorn Riot. And then your 4 friends, they donate $1, right? So that's $4 that something like Unicorn Riot would have never gotten before. It's real interesting. I'll tell an anecdote why this stuff kind of matters to me. So at PAX this year, back when there was still cons, in the before times. I was tabling for Trans Lifeline in the Diversity Lounge. And a group of friends came up to us, and they're like, what's Trans Lifeline? So, we sit down and we tell them, and, you want to make connection points with people, because one of the problems with trying to get donations, especially from lower income people, is they go, well, I can only donate $1. What does $1 do, right? I can only donate $5. Because, they hear about all these, telethons where, hundreds of thousands of dollars are raised. So they're thinking, my $1 donation doesn't matter, right? And I said to them, $25 connects one person to the hotline, period, dot. And it's 4 friends. No, it's actually 5 friends. And they each pulled together $25. And they're like, we as friends, we can give one person access to the hotline. None of them were trans. Maybe some of them were queer, but they heard what it was about. They were already at PAX anyway, and together they gave $25. And there was a lot of moments like that for various orgs that I've tabled for at various events over the years, where people hear what something's about and they just take the couple of seconds and they go, that's dope. I want to be a part of that. And I just imagine what something with bigger reach than me and 2 other people at a table in a room that only gets traffic of 400 people, right, can do. Imagine what a company that has 10 million people in their storefront every day can do, right? And that's why I've become so adamant about doing this type of work. Is I know that I can set the bar low enough for these companies to do the most impactful and meaningful thing, right? I know I can figure out a way to make the bar so low that you barely have to take your foot off the ground to do it.
It's just a step.
And I'm not trying to say that that's what I do with Cloud9. I'm not going to make him sound like, oh my God, I had to like lift them off the ground and get them over the bar. But I did it the way I spoke to them and the way I've spoken to every other company I've worked with this month is there are ways that we can do things that's just so small that can do so much.
Yeah. I love that. And I love the ripple effect. And I agree. Do you think that you will ever get in the room with Epic? Like, when is that happening?
I mean, I was working on that before COVID.
Ah. Well, maybe not in the room then, but in a Zoom call.
I mean, who knows, right? I never thought I'd be working transparency with like my favorite esports team, right? Mm-hmm. I thought the only way I'll ever interact with Cloud9 is hopefully I do an interview, and then after the interview, I like talk to the team manager and I say some cool stuff, and maybe that gets turned into something. I never thought I would get to have a direct influence on an org that I've been a fan of since I've been in esports, right? So I don't want to say like, oh man, I'll never get to talk to Epic, because that's, who knows, right? Maybe Epic sees this. Maybe somebody at Cloud9 talks to somebody at Epic casually. One of my most recent clients is friends with people that I worked with at Cloud9. And so when I was holding them accountable for something, they said, oh, wait, are you the Amanda that worked with X and Y from Cloud9? And I said, yes. They said, we would love to get on to hire you for an hour of consulting.
Wow.
Right? So, like, who knows? Who knows what the things I'm doing now opens up for opportunities later, right? You never know how that stuff works out.
Yeah. Well, I hope it happens.
Yeah.
I love that you're here. I love that Frosk said that as well. I think, you know, her words to you. I want to see more of that in esports. And I've been told that by people. Like, why are you helping me? Oh, because you're just trying. You're just a good dude. I don't know. I want to pay that forward as well. So I think watching you and like the transitional combat especially, but then also this and like hearing more about it now, I think it's very inspiring. So I want to say thank you personally.
Thanks.
And I hope the viewers and I hope the other people watching can be inspired as well, because it doesn't always take, you aren't Epic. Like maybe you can help them at some point in the future, but yeah, you're helping people at a table at PAX as well. And that's all things that we can do. So what's been the coolest thing that you've seen in your time, like talking with Cloud9 and some of these other orgs? Have there been any like really cool
I'll be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I think the response to the flag we chose for our merch this year. So we use what's referred to as the all-inclusive flag. It's a variation of the progressive flag, which is a flag that not only has the rainbow, but has the trans flag and the black and brown stripes to represent, that Pride also includes black and brown bodies as well as trans individuals. I had quite a few people reach out to me, both in DMs, in ats on Twitter, saying that, it meant so much for them to see something more representative in their Pride merch. People don't realize how just very small amounts of representation means so much to a lot of people. And that's why, I say, like, I try to aim for, like, these very low bars, because I know how much the small steps mean in the conversation and in moving things forward, right? Because I mentioned to Sabby, when I was talking to her about potentially working with EG about Trans Lifeline, she took that idea and did something with her clothing line, Killsteel, where when you order any of the Pride merch from Killsteel, you pick one of 3 charities, one of which being Trans Lifeline. And so, right, all of these little things, right, that we say and do can influence other things, right? That's why, that's like the cool thing for me. It's not so much I'm not saying that like working with Cloud9 isn't cool, but it's like the conversations I got to have because of some of the very simple things that we did with Cloud9 influenced other people, right? And so I'm hoping next year, we see more of the progressive or all-inclusive flag, right? We saw that on Riot, on the broadcast. All of the broadcasters are wearing the progressive flag on the broadcast this month. If you notice the little small flag, it's rainbow flag, it's got an arrow with the trans flag and black and brown stripes. That's why, right? I'm not going to say that has anything to do with me, right? I don't know. But you know what? It's cool to see, right? Maybe they saw what Cloud9 was doing and they thought about it. Maybe someone I've talked to at Riot about this casually said, hey, we should do this. I don't know. Maybe it was just the Karma team, which I think is the charitable giving team at Riot. Maybe they were like, hey, this is what we should be doing this year. Who knows? I don't know anything, right? I don't work at Riot. But, like, it's cool that, like, it all seemed to have lined up. And I'm not trying to take credit. Like, making that very clear. Nothing to do with what's going on with Riot. But, like, it's cool that one thing I did seems to have lined up in the universe of esports in some way, and other people are trying to be more inclusive, right? I remember a time where all you would get, I think it was Team Liquid. Team Liquid was like the first team that got on stage 3 years ago, and every player was wearing a rainbow button. And Team Liquid made their social media icon rainbow. And I was like, I'll take this, right? Considering esports says nothing about Pride Month, I'll take this, right? I will take acknowledgement, because you got to take the first step. And then every team was making their icons rainbow, right? And then, you started seeing the rainbow pins on the broadcast, right? And then teams started making Pride merch, right? I love that I'm watching esports progressively realizing that they can be inclusive, that they can do things for other communities. And like I said, it's not all because of me, but I like being a part of that change.
Yeah. I know it's been almost an hour, so I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I have two other questions. One, where do you think, or what is your vision and hope for this time next year as far as esports and continuing this that you're talking about?
I mean, it's hard to say. I know behind closed doors that a lot of plans were scrapped because of COVID and finances and just like available means. So I don't know what a post-COVID world looks like. I don't even know if in the United States will be post-COVID in 2021
at all.
Right? Like we could still be doing remote broadcasts next year. And, the industry is publicly and privately hurting financially, so who knows? But I don't want to see more step backwards. I feel like this year was a bit of a backward step in esports a little bit for Pride. Like if you think about it, less orgs were doing merch, which means that there was less charitable giving. I'm like I said, I'm not gonna hold that against anybody. I don't think it was like because orgs were like, all right, it's not cool to be inclusive. There's a lot of things that go into that. But I'm just hoping that maybe, seeing TL's online Pride Parade, and this is why I made the tweet that I made, is esports knows how to do online community events. It's not new to us. So, like, I was hoping that, like, everybody would be doing something like that because it's so fucking easy. You all have Discords. How hard would it be to just do queer community nights once a week for the entire month? Like, that wouldn't have been hard, right? You already do community nights. But, like, I just hope that COVID and this year teaches a lot of these orgs that you can do things digitally, and that, just making sure that people realize that your space is an inclusive space will bring more people in. Like, we hear a lot of these stories about people not getting involved in the FGC, not getting involved in League of Legends because of toxicity, right? How do you fix that? You show that there are places that aren't like that, right? We have to own up to the fact that there are toxic aspects of our industry, but we can also say in this specific space, whether it's this show's Twitch chat, whether it's you in my Discord, whether it's the Cloud9 Discord, that stuff isn't stood for, that it's not allowed. And if we keep doing things like that every year, right, where we're singing it from the mountains, from the top of the Barren Pit, that toxicity and hate is not acceptable, and that yes, LGBT people are welcomed in this space. Yes, Black people are welcomed in this space. Yes, Asian people. Yes, go down the list, right? Everybody is welcomed here. Then the space will be in a good place eventually.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that was more of an extrapolated answer. I would love to see a lot more Pride initiatives. I would like to see more charitable giving. I would love, orgs to pick, different charities around the country and, pick smaller endeavors. Maybe do something like Sequest / Tree Quest, but for charities, right? That would be really cool. There's all these really cool things that I wish could happen. But, like I said, it's about means and availability. And so I just want to see the needle move closer to inclusivity, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to fully swing, right? It doesn't have to, hit. We don't need to be in limit break. But, we're inching closer. Each boss battle, each random encounter, our limit break meters is getting more and more full, right? And that's all I want. I don't want our limit break gauge to deplete itself anytime soon.
Yeah. How does that look outside of Pride Month? Because up until now, you've talked a little about, throughout the year, but most of what we have seen has just been, this is the month of June. This is when we're allowed to say X, Y, Z, and we're going to put on a rainbow. What, I don't know. Have you been talking to them about, hey guys, you're allowed to keep doing this, on July 1st.
A lot of orgs do realize, whether they're my actual clients or just, casual conversation, that long-term, year-round activations are way more meaningful and way more authentic. It's just about how. I can't say a lot of the stuff that, Cloud9 is doing, but they have plans for doing stuff year-round, through the charities that they're working with. And like I said, it doesn't always have to be a checkbook, right? And it doesn't always have to be this big show, right? Cloud9 sends, some staff and management to the LGBT Center to talk about getting into esports, and that's a real thing people can do. Maybe it's evil geniuses, showing up at a California. So like here in my region, New York, we have something called the Northeast LGBTQ Conference. It's a conference put on by a bunch of Northeast colleges. Most of them are state schools. And they talk about things that impact them as college students who are LGBTQ. So there's a lot of seminars about that. What if EG sent, Sonic Fox to that? Or sent anyone from the org to that? What if there was what if, we showed people that one of the things that I've learned from working with like middle school kids is that like when the kids find out that there's like people doing things that they want to do that are like them, they get so excited. When the kids found out that here's this like trans non-binary person who works in gaming, their eyes lit up. It was like the coolest, screw talking to Daigo, F having an interview with Double Lift, kids getting jammed that like there's someone that looks like them in an industry that they're like a little bit interested in of gaming. That was the greatest moment of my life, right? And so like there's ways to be, like I said, it's not just about merch. It's not just about donations. It's not just about rainbow avatars. Empowerment and enrichment can have so many different forms and can be so valuable and can do so much. And it, sometimes it's just flying somebody out to a conference. Maybe it's about, and like it doesn't even have to involve players. Like I said, Sonic Fox because they're very outspoken and an activist. But maybe it's, the business dev at an org going to, a LGBT biz conference, right? And Maybe it's not them going to talk. Maybe it's them going to listen, right? Maybe it's about education and finding out, I never thought of, like, there are times when I'm consulting, both big and small, where I hear, I never thought about that. I've never thought about this. I didn't know that was an issue, right? And so what does a meaningful year-round activation look like? What if it's just learning? What if it's just reading books? What if it's, making it, important to read, a book about transness? What if it's about, having guest speakers come into company retreats to talk about this stuff, right? The thing that I need everybody to understand is there's many ways to be an activist. There's many ways to be an ally. And it's not just about, that $10 donation. It's not just about wearing the rainbow shirt. It's not just about standing up to bullies. There's other things you can do: learning, talking, listening, right? Like, all of that is just as important as the money and, the visible things we do. One of my favorite Bible parables is, or phrases is, the right hand doesn't always need to know what the left hand is doing, right? Just because people don't know that you're doing the right thing doesn't mean that you're not doing the right thing.
It doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Like, you shouldn't be doing the right thing because people can see that you are doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Although I think, people always are like, oh, but then, what's the point? Or like, what's blah, blah, blah. Like, sure, having the rainbow is nice because then people see it every time they see your logo. Oh, it's rainbow. Why? Oh, maybe they learn. But yeah, doing the other things is just as important, if not more. Well, thank you very much. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we go? I don't know are there any like things that I missed or that you were
I'm pretty good. Just be kind to people. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world and in our industry right now. And whenever people say, thank you for being nice to me or something, a phrase that I like to use is kindness is the only currency that I have, and so I give it generously. Kindness goes a very long way. So just be kind.
It does. Thank you for that. And yeah, it doesn't even cost anything. Just be kind.
Nope.
Well, thank you very much for joining us.
Infinite currency.
It is. And thank all of you watching. Thank you all for joining as well. I hope you learned something and got a little inspired and maybe are a little bit more excited about doing some good things in the world. And thank you so much, Amanda. Thank you, of course, to HyperX as well. Thank you to Cloud9 as well. We got the HyperX. Nice. And thank you to Inven Global, I guess. I don't know. But that does it for us.
Nope. No Inven Global.
Nope.
It's fine. Like,
I don't think I have any. And other than my business card, we don't have much Inven Global swag. But yeah, thank you all so much for joining. We will have another episode next week, same time, Wednesday at 2 p.m. PST. And we will catch you then. Until then, you can find the rest of our content on invenglobal.com and our YouTube at, I don't know, it's probably YouTube/invenglobal. Follow Amanda it's on the screen there. It's like right below. Yes. Follow Amanda there on Twitter. And I'm going to link all of the stuff that you talked about. I'll try and go through and find all of the different things.
I'll make a list for you. I'll put in like
great.
the Google Doc.
Great.
I'm doing it now.
And I will link that in the YouTube description. So if you want links, go find them there or go follow Amanda on Twitter. Thank you all so much. And thank you again, Amanda. And we will catch you all next time.